Welcome to the Sage Advice Podcast, transforming the way people think and work so their organizations can thrive. Well, hi everyone, and welcome to our podcast. I'm Ed Kless, and today's episode is cut from another podcast of which I am the co-host, The Soul of Enterprise, which is also sponsored by Sage. The Soul of Enterprise is dedicated to belief that business has a spiritual, though not necessarily religious, component. I hope you enjoy this excerpt. If you do, please visit www.thesoulofenterprise.com for more. Well, quick bio. Warren calls himself a questionologist and is the creator of the popular website, amorebeautifulquestion.com, and the author of the Beautiful Questions series of books, all focusing on the power of inquiry to spark breakthrough ideas and improve your daily life. Before focusing on questioning, Warren wrote the internationally acclaimed Glimmer, How Design Can Transform Business and Your Life. Warren writes for a variety of publications, including Fast Company, Harvard Business Review, Psychology Today, and was a longtime contributor at Wired Magazine and the New York Times. He has appeared on NBC's Today Show, ABC News, CNN, and an expert on NPR's All Things Considered, and today on The Soul of Enterprise. So, Warren, first, I have to tell you that developing questions for a questionologist was very intimidating.
I'll bet. Yeah, it's true. You probably think I'm going to be analyzing every question, right?
So the first question I have for you is actually a directive statement, and I want to ask you about that too later. Tell me how you became a questionologist.
Yeah, well, I was, I've been a journalist for a long time. So when you're a journalist, questioning is kind of your tool of the trade. And so I was really a big time questioner for a long time and always worked on my questions and tried to, get them to be as penetrating and effective as I could. But I never really thought about it that much as a specialty or something I would, really go into until maybe about 6 or 7 years ago. I was writing at that time about design and design thinking, which is kind of a hot thing in the business world, or has been in recent years. And it's just the idea that you should sort of design all of your approaches and you should try to think like a designer. And as I was writing about that, I realized that one of the main things designers do when they're trying to solve problems is they really focus on asking the right question. And I thought that was really interesting. And then sort of I picked up on that, and then I started to notice that it extended beyond designers, that if you looked at some of the best business leaders, they were also really focused on asking the right questions or tackling a big question. So it occurred to me that maybe this was a good area to zero in on, just the power of questions, what questions can do, and can we get better at asking questions? So that became my big topic, over the last 5 or 6 years, and hence I started to call myself a questionologist, meaning, one who studies the art and science of questions.
And interestingly enough, I'm just going to take a quick side note down here. You said started life out as a journalist or had been in journalism. What do you think the state of journalism today is with regard to questions?
I think it's probably the same as it's always been. Some people use questions very well as journalists, and some people don't. Everyone is sort of everyone is familiar with the term gotcha questions, and that's always been a problem in journalism. By the way, there's a time for a gotcha question. When you're closing in on someone in the midst of a scandal, there probably is a good time to hit them with that question that really kind of nails them. But I think what we see with gotcha questions when it gets used more broadly is that it becomes a tactic for generating attention. It becomes a way for the journalists to sort of make their own reputation. And so it can kind of get out of hand. And I think, the state of journalism right now is that some people are using questions in that way, and it's maybe less effective. But there's still a lot of journalists who are using questioning the right way, which is to try to really dig in and get some good information that maybe people don't know about.
I think that's also true. I was just thinking about this morning, and having watched a little bit of the hearings with the major tech companies being pulled before Congress yet again
Yeah,
for a congressional panel, and thinking, boy, these guys could use some work with you, meaning the Congress people, about
yeah,
asking questions, because they don't seem to ask many questions rather than just make statements.
yeah. Well, that's it. They're using it as a forum to look good themselves. And one of the things I say about questions is I talk about authentic questions versus what I sometimes label as counterfeit questions. You know, and a counterfeit question is a question that really doesn't isn't really seeking to learn. That would be an authentic question. That's a question that's seeking to learn something and to get some new information. A counterfeit question often has an agenda. The agenda may be make the questioner look really smart, or the agenda may be criticism. You want to criticize someone, so you phrase it as a question, as in, what were you thinking when you did that? Are you crazy? Those are questions, but they're really not questions. They're really statements disguised as questions.
Yeah, and even questions that are designed to sometimes even intimidate. I think back on are you for us or against us kind
Yeah,
of thing.
exactly. Yeah, I think questioning gets misused a lot as a tool. I mean, it's used to disguise other things and to make things seem more reasonable than really they might be. To say, so that you can always say, "Oh, all I was doing was asking a question." But in fact, you may be, sometimes you're embedding something in that question that is really a statement or a criticism or something that isn't doing what a question is supposed to do.
For more sage advice, visit and subscribe at sageadvicepodcast.com.